in England, we're going to talk about these few items here. These are porcelain. We've discussed porcelain in video 1, and they are fairly valuable. I'll try and give you estimates and prices as I go along. These are sold, so I can't sell them on, but our collectors bought them. So we have got what's called famille rose. This is rose because of the pinky colours they've used. Some people in England will call that famille verte. It's not famille verte, it's famille rose. There is a famille noir and a famille jaune. Those 4 titles, famille verte, famille rose, famille jaune, famille noir, are Western descriptions for these products. They're receiver end descriptions, and that does not cover all the Chinese pottery. There are other types of Chinese pottery. There's celadon, there is crackle glaze, there is blue and white, blah blah blah. And many other types. So we're just talking about this bunch of famille rose, otherwise known sometimes as rose medallion. The pottery in front of me, in front of you, is export pottery. That means it is pottery made to export. Now, the byproduct of the ships that went to China from Europe and America was that to bring the tea back, which is light, they needed ballast, and this pottery filled the holes, and they would wrap it in straw and paper in cases, boxes, and they would use the heavy pottery to make the ships float right. That's a simplistic thing, but that's what happened. And at the bottom of China, right in the middle, there was a town called Canton, different name now, and Canton was an area of license where the emperor of China said, we'll let the merchants interact with the manufacturers in one place. And there was famously 13 warehouses, 13 places where the foreign buyers could interact with the manufacturers, as I say. And each of the warehouses had its own country. So there was England, there was America, there was France, there was Netherlands. I can't remember the other ones. And these warehouses were run by slaves, or certainly indentured workers, forced labour, and peasants, and the owners of the factories making the stuff up in the mountains. So the product came down on pack horse and by hand and by barge to Canton, and it was put into these warehouses, and it was packed on the ships, and it was floated to the west. And after 1868, a lot of it would have come through the Suez Canal in iron ships. So the later in history it goes, the more capacity there was, and the more product was stuck onto these ships. And there were millions and millions of pieces of famille rose bought to just England, millions. And it's a similar trade with China. With Japan. Lots of stuff came from Japan to England. The eggshell stuff, the geisha ware in particular, was all over the place in England, and the Mari, for example, as well. So it was a very big industry, and it still persists now, because this is a Chinese mug. Though they make them in Vietnam and the Philippines and everywhere else, still a lot of China does come from China to England. So going back to China, they were exporting to the West, and the English had quite a good hold on the shipping ultimately, and there were disputes about how much access the English could have, British could have into inner China, and what goods were to be allowed to be sold, notably opium. Opium was not allowed in China. And there were wars, unfortunately, about the British, notably Scottish, having access to being allowed to sell opium in China. So it's not the same trade, but it's all part of the same scenario. Iron ships, wooden ships, opium, ballast, tea, pottery. So it's very complicated. So what happened was, the people making the pottery were making the stuff that the English would buy and the Westerners would buy. And these are export sized items, and they would have been sent to England to be put into shops. So in London, you would have gone into a shop into Harrods in 1920, and there would have been this stuff, and they would have bought 200 at a time, exactly the same. Harrods would have. There would have been 4 cases with 50 or whatever in each box. It's not a case of that being a unique vase. This is the thing. They're expensive now and they're revered now, but in the day, this is just ordinary stuff. Amongst the export there was the top end stuff. Of course, there was the wonderful stuff, and they were also bringing antique China to England and the West, as well as the newly manufactured stuff. This was the newly manufactured stuff for the export market, for the Western market, to the taste of the Western market and the expectation of the Western market, made at a price. And if you go into a department store now and look at Wedgwood or Rosenthal or fine cut glass, that will be an equivalent sort of price in its day. This would have been affordable to most people, not most people, affordable to the people shopping in department stores and shops selling housewares and giftware. Sometimes entire services were shipped directly to country houses from China without going through a retail situation. There were different types of distribution in England, but this stuff was basically brought over to put into shops. Some was bought by travellers as well, but not as much as for the merchants. Okay, so we'll start with this little vase. This little vase is worth £20. It's famille rose. I would say that's 1930 because of the flared. It's a very simple, non-interesting lid. It has got some texture on the bottom, some grit on the bottom, which is good to see. There is a panel showing the man is holding a scroll. Now, I'm going to use a cliche. In England, the auctioneers would say, oh, it's a scholar. I can't improve on that, to be fair. So it's a scholar, 2 other men and a female. That is what that shows. There is another panel at the top. There is another panel on the reverse. There is another scene on the back. Man, woman, man. A nobleman, perhaps. Don't know. A butterfly, very common. A Greek key with gold. So it's great. It's a lovely item, but basic. Okay, next item. This is slightly better. I would say that's 1920 as well. It could be 1890. It could be 1930. I'm just giving you what I think it will be, based on probability. This is the sort of lumpy bottom with the firing imperfections, which is what you want to see. Some grittiness on the brim. The texture is like orange peel. If you discount the painting, it's not smooth, like a modern piece of pottery. It's not like that, for example. There's more texture. Okay. We'll try and look at this scene. They have fans. There were 2 men with fans. I don't know the significance. There are books, butterflies, swags, garlands, fruit, flowers, peony, chrysanthemum, rose perhaps. The main panel shows 3 females in a room and another individual. That is a courtesan scene in my estimation, which means prostitutes. Same scene on the back. The fact it's the same scene on the back pulls the price down because it means it's samey. It would be better if it had 2 different scenes. There are females with fans and females on the other panel in the reverse. So it's a nice thing. It's quite big, not damaged. I reckon that's worth £80 currently. As I say, we can't sell them because they've been bought by someone else. This is a teapot. There was no damage on the spout. There was no damage on the lugs. The lid is present. That's a usual thing to get lost. If it's lost the lid, it's of very little interest. The lid has ground off areas. The rim has ground off areas. The bottom has firing debris and a lovely texture, which is what you want to see. Okay, we've got the bird, birds and peony or chrysanthemum, a panel of characters, 2 girls, a man holding something, a fan I think, I don't know what it is. Another scene, it's the same scene. Okay, if they're holding weapons, they're warriors. If they're holding scrolls, they're scholars. If they are looking like clerics, then they're priests. Those are the simplistic interpretations, which may or may not be wrong. This one here, that's a nice feature on the rim. Dogs are food, dogs are foe. This moulded decoration with gold, not gold, fake gold, it's real gold. Butterflies, roses, flowers, lovely border to the panel, a scene of it's 3 girls, a bed and a man. It's a prostitute scene. I think it's a prostitute scene, courtesans. The bottom, same. So you can see the consistency here. The manufacture is interesting. This thing here, this body, I think will have been made in a plaster mould with 2 halves, and they would have poured into the plaster mould to the top a liquefied porcelain, and they would let it set, and it would set only around the plaster. And they would have poured out this excess, applied the spout, made a hole, and they finished it, added lugs and painted it subsequently. That's how they make that. The item, the can part, was put on a turntable and trimmed with a knife to make it even. That's worth about £140. This is worth about £150. This one here is possibly made on a turntable. I think it's likely that bit was made in a mould, and that bit was either made in a mould or made separately, stuck on. Obviously, moulding was stuck on. So you can see you've got stuff made on a turntable by hand. You've got stuff made in a plaster cast, and you've got bits added on. It's a bit like Wedgwood now. They make the teapots now in a plaster mould, and Wedgwood make a mould for the spout, and they stick it on, and the handle, and they stick it on. That's how they make it, just for wear. They make the body, they have the Greek scenes, they stick it on the front. This item here, famille rose, a nice limey green. I think that will be 1880 to 1910, and I think that's worth 180 to 200 pounds. If you're buying it at an auction, it might go for 300 pounds, it might go for 100 pounds. We've sold this in one job lot. So, famille rose. So you have a man outside looking in. You have 2 girls and characters here. I don't know what they are. Beautiful, beautiful birds. You have the same scene on the other side in different colours, and more birds, chrysanthemums and peonies. Lovely scalloped edge, plenty of gold. On the shoulder you've got lovely panels. This has got a foot on it, as opposed to that one which hasn't got a foot on it. It's a bit more expense. I would say that is quite a European looking foot, not a particularly Oriental looking foot, and it hasn't got the decorative rim. It's got a panel up here showing 2 men chatting, and more flowers. So I'm not an expert. I've just given you a talk through, a walk through what we've got. When you're buying the stuff, the prices do vary slightly. Go for quality, go for condition. Buy something you like, something you can live with. Take your time to view. If you're buying in an auction, beware of dark rooms. Beware of boxes full of stuff. Things get broken after you put the bid in. And good luck with your Chinese pottery buying. Thank you.